So I said, back away from everything else. I'm going to focus on being the owner of a criminal defense firm. I'm going to hire people that are committed to criminal defense, and that's what we're going to go all in on. And even in the last year, we grew 27%. I mean, we're still growing, 7-figure growth year over year is astounding, I think, to us. But I think it's also proof positive of if you find your thing and you do it well and you're committed to it, things work out for you.
Well, we call that a life by design. So create the life you want, then create the firm that supports that life, and then go market for both the clients and the team members who will support that firm that will support that life.
Welcome to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, the show where we ask the questions, why aren't more lawyers living flourishing lives and inspiring others? And can you really get wealthy while doing only the work you love with people you like? Many lawyers are. Get ready to hear from your host, Ben Glass, the founder of the law firm Ben Glass Law in Fairfax, Virginia, and Great Legal Marketing, an organization that helps good people succeed by coaching, inspiring, and supporting law firm owners. Join us for today's conversation.
Hey everyone, this is Ben Glass, and welcome back to the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, where each episode I get to interview interesting people inside and outside of legal who are dinging the world. And today I've got another great guest, Jay Ruane. Jay's a buddy, a LinkedIn buddy of mine. He's a criminal defense lawyer in Connecticut. He also runs something called the Criminal Mastermind, which maybe put you on some watch list or something.
Yeah, of course.
Jay's got a really interesting setup, a long career, but now terms himself the owner of the law firm and not doing a lot of legal, doing a lot of mentoring, including mentoring of his own team, which is coaching of his own team, which I want to get into, and helping the next generation of attorneys, some of whom are operating, as you said, Jay, before we went live, with a cell phone and a body, right?
Right.
And trying to start a practice and get a practice going. So welcome to the episode, and thanks for taking some time, my friend.
Ben, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this. I've been looking forward to this day. In fact, it's the only thing on my calendar today.
Yeah, that's really cool. I don't have too many things on my calendar. And so let's kind of start there, because one of the things that I find with highly successful people, whether they're lawyers or they're running other small businesses that kind of get there, is that the founder, leader grinds it out for a long time and then reaches a spot where he or she is able to say things like, this is the only thing on my calendar. And sometimes those founder leaders then, if you are talking one-on-one with them, Jay, will express some level of guilt about, hey, I'm not, quote, working as hard as everyone else is around here anymore. Do you experience that? Did you walk through that journey at all?
Well, no, I don't think so, because the type of work that I'm doing now in my firm is the type of work that only I could do. I have a mindset that's a little different from most traditional criminal defense lawyers. I took to digital marketing early on. I had websites in the 90s, that type of thing. And really, my team also appreciates that by me having the freedom to do the stuff that I can do and I can do well, it's going to help them because it's going to increase our revenue. That's going to mean more money for them, more job security for them. And I tend to at least I think I tend to attract people that are committed to the area of criminal defense. And that has been the biggest challenge for me, I think, because probably about 7-8 years ago, I said, well, I've kind of got this stuff buttoned down, and why don't I open a divorce practice? And my heart's not, I was able to brand it, market it, get cases in. My heart's not in that work. It just isn't. And then the same thing about PI. We had a decently ranking PI website. My heart's not in PI. It's just not. I'm a street lawyer. I do better with criminal defendants than I do with other lawyers, and those are my people. So I said, back away from everything else. I'm going to focus on being the owner of a criminal defense firm. I'm going to hire people that are committed to criminal defense, and that's what we're going to go all in on. And even in the last year, we grew 27%. I mean, we're still growing. 7-figure growth year over year is astounding, I think, to us. But I think it's also proof positive of if you find your thing and you do it well and you're committed to it, things work out for you.
Well, we call that a life by design. So create the life you want, then create the firm that supports that life, and then go market for both the clients and the team members who will support that firm that will support that life. So That's great. Tell us a little bit more about your backstory. I know that you started practice with your dad, and
Yep.
I imagine had a fairly typical criminal defense, maybe even general practice. But tell me about your journey.
So I took the bar in 1998 and luckily passed it on my first shot. I got a job as a per diem public defender. Back in 98, my friends coming out of law school were starting at six figures. I mean, low six figures, 100, 125 and stuff. I got a job making $100 a day. And so in my first year, I made about $23,000. So I took that job. All I wanted to do was be a public defender. I loved my job. I got passed over for a permanent position and felt that I was misled. So I quit on the spot, marched on down to my dad's office. My father was a solo criminal defense lawyer at the time. And I said, I just quit. And he goes, well, I don't know what you're going to do because I don't have any work for you. I'm hanging on myself. And he said, there's an empty desk in the corner, and the guys I share office space will let you stay there for free because it's broken. Figure it out, kid. And that's what I did. I put my mind to figuring it out. I built a website. I built a website because I called the Yellow Pages people immediately upon quitting because I was told that's what you need to do. And I was told, good, hey, kid, you're out of luck. They closed the book last week. So you've got to wait a year before you can get in the next book. And I was like, oh, shit, what am I going to do? Well, sorry. So I said, oh, let's build a website. And if you go back on the Internet Archive and see some of my first websites, they are horrific. But it's turned into something for me, and we continue to rank well. And that's really my journey. My father then became my partner about a year and a half later when I had brought in enough work that I needed help. And we've been growing ever since.
It's interesting because I'm a little bit older than you are, and I practiced about 12 years and started my own practice in 1995. And I got in the Yellow Page because the deadline was coming up like the next week. And the only thing I could afford was a little dollar bill size ad for personal injury and medical malpractice that said, you know, we care for you and we're aggressive. And of course, mine was at the back of the book. And in those days, as we remember, it was 40 and 50 and 60 pages, probably of Yellow Page ads of lawyers. But I too learned, I went to one of my first websites. I went to Errol's. Errol's had a class in HTML back in the day. And I designed mine myself. You can go back and do the same thing with the web archives and see. They were great. They were great at the time because they were the only ones standing. And of course, by today's standard, they're very primitive. But back in those early days, those of us who were first to digital, you didn't have to be really good because there just weren't a lot of people there, right? And today, of course, it's so very competitive, not only with other lawyers, but with other lead generation sites and lots of money in web marketing. So tell us, we're recording this near the end of November or in the late November of 23. What does the firm look like in terms of number of people under roof, lawyers and non-lawyer staff?
So right now we are 10 lawyers, a total of 33 staff. Some are full-time remote, some are in office, some are overseas. And we've really sort of blended the best of utilizing technology. I had always built us to not go dark when things like a New England winter came up. So we invested early on, gave everybody laptops and stuff. And I can remember March 6th of 2020, everyone was talking about COVID, but nobody was really taking any action. And I just said, I don't have a good feeling about this. And I know a friend of yours, Ryan McKean, we were talking and I said, you know, I think I'm going to make my people work from home until we figure this thing out. And so I literally sent out a Slack message at 4 o'clock saying, effective immediately, we're going remote. Pack up your stuff and check in tomorrow at your normal start time. And it was seamless. I mean, because we had prepared for that moment. Nobody could really prepare for COVID, but we had prepared for instances like that. So we've been able to then utilize our, I guess, ability to be nimble. We weren't looking for a VoIP phone system. We weren't looking for computers. We had a robust enough internet at all of our key players' houses already. So that really didn't bother. So we were able to keep going. And then utilizing digital technology, even when the courts shut down entirely, I was able to get creative and say, hey, you know what? We can pivot into pardons and expungements, which is something that was tangentially related to criminal defense. And we have a mailing list of 12,000 people who never hired us. So I sent out an email to that list saying, hey, if you didn't hire us, you might have gotten a conviction. Now that you've got your stimulus money, do you want us to work on your pardon? And that kept us alive in the first 6 months of COVID, because I was able to pivot and utilize the stuff that I had been amassing for years, not knowing what I would use it for. And that's one of the big takeaways. I think it's, you never know what's coming down the line. So when you have opportunity to store data, make yourself more flexible, you should be taking it.
Yeah, it was shocking in COVID, in the early months of COVID, how many listservs, email listservs, there were lawyers asking about, like, what's a good laptop to buy, and how do we move our server that's on a hard drive in the office to the cloud or something like that, or how do we remote into a desktop that's at the office. Yeah, so good for you. So talk to us a little bit about, because that sounds like a pretty substantial criminal defense firm. That's a big firm. I mean, if you were in Fairfax, which is a big, robust lawyer-filled area, and have a criminal defense firm with 10 lawyers, that'd be a fairly large criminal defense firm.
I think we're probably the biggest in the state that handles private practice. I know, having spoken to some of my colleagues that are still in the public defender space, our firm opens more files in a week than some of the local public defender offices. Although we handle statewide, they handle a 3 or 4 town location. But yeah, I mean, we've been able to build it on the back of great teammates here that really give phenomenal customer service. Our biggest thing, I mean, we have an NPS of 8.6 right now. We focus on that, and that's over the last, I think I checked this morning, it was over the last 1,000 surveys we were at 8.6, which is pretty good for a legal services business, especially one that doesn't deal with some happiness in a person's life. Not that most lawyers don't deal with happy points in people's lives, right? It's a divorce, it's an injury, it's an arrest. I mean, other than maybe adoption, where people are happy to be paying the money to create this beautiful family, there's not a lot of happiness with hiring a lawyer. It doesn't happen. And so we strive very hard to make sure that our clients get top level service, and so that we can welcome their referrals back to our firm over the years. And our numbers for referrals continue to grow, and that's something that we take very, very seriously here.
Well, and I want to talk to you about that in a second. So you said statewide. So do you have physical office space in more than one place?
Yes, we do. I've got, my main office is in Shelton, which is in the north end of Fairfield County, so that we can service 2 counties. We don't have county government here in Connecticut, but for the people who are listening, we're basically on the corner of a county, so we can handle stuff in both counties out of this one courthouse, out of this one location. We've got another of staffed office location up near the Capitol, and then we have 5 or 6 unstaffed meeting spaces for people that are across the state that my lawyers can work out of if they need to meet with a client. Like, for example, we've got a number of correctional facilities up in this one area of the state. So we opened a little office there, right? And so if it's in between visits and the lawyer needs to go somewhere, they have a place, they can go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee. And then if they got to go back to the jail later that afternoon or evening, they don't have to drive all the way home and back. We're now looking into opening offices out in the eastern end of the state by the naval base, simply because we have a new lawyer who's phenomenal, who's a U.S. Army veteran, and he appeals to men and women in the service because he has some shared life experiences with them. So we're constantly growing, and we do it somewhat, relying on data. We look at arrest records and town populations and our competition to see, who's got the most Google reviews and how quickly we can overtake them in an area that we're going to open up. So it's a strategic and tactical approach.
So who is managing the overall marketing for the firm? Do you do that? Do you have an agency that you have, making recommendations to? Because you're doing a lot. You've alluded to a large list, number one, a large, robust digital presence. Are you the brains behind all of that?
I mean, I guess you could say that. I have an in-house marketing department that is comprised of 4 people. I have a web designer, developer. Happens to be my brother, who worked for me for a while, but sometimes brothers aren't the best to work in close confines. So he spun off his own company, and we employ that company to build our websites and maintain them. I have a director of marketing who's been with me for 12 years now. She came out of college with a English degree, and her father told her that, what can you do with an English degree? You should have been an accountant. And she happened to be the daughter of a lawyer that I knew. And I said, well, I actually am looking for somebody who can write. So I brought her in. She has learned so much in the, she's gone to PubCon and to tons of conferences. And so she's my director of marketing.
Yeah.
She has a full-time videographer on her team now. And then they also have a social media and administrative assistant who runs with the posts and that type of thing. It's funny. I hate to say we're a family firm, but if I go down all the people in my firm, so it's me and my father. My other partner is Teresa. She's in charge of intake and sales. She's my sister's best friend from college. Krista is my oldest serving paralegal. I've known her since I was 17 years old, and she worked at another firm and then came to work for me. When she got laid off by that other firm, I hired her on the spot because I knew her work ethic. She brought in her mother's friend's daughter, Emily, who's now my HR person and has been with me in a couple of different stints, but is back now full time. My marketing director, Jen, was the next door neighbor of my wife growing up. And so that's how we know her. Her videographer, photographer is the son of my mother-in-law's boyfriend, who similarly was being told, what can you do if you love video? I said, I got a job for you. And so he's been crushing it for us. So we're really sort of a family-based law firm, and it's very important for me to make this thing grow. I mean, I could step away from law entirely and step away from this firm, but I'm committed to making it a functional operation because I want to protect them. I mean, I really care about my people, and it's important for me that they have a job that's flexible enough for their family. So that's really why I'm still committed to it. I could walk away tomorrow and retire, but I still I dip my toe into it because I want to see them secure.
Well, with all of those family and friend connections, that's actually a lot of pressure on your shoulders.
Yeah, that's what my wife tells me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask you about your hiring process, but after going through that tree of connections there, you have a secret sauce that others would say it's hard to duplicate. But I would say this. I mean, it looks to me like you're hiring for talent and enthusiasm and people who are behind the mission of the firm, right? And then figuring out, oh, we'll find a place for you. Like, you're really good at this thing. Come on over. We'll find a place. We'll insert you.
Well, here's a perfect example. I have a new hire that's starting today, actually. And she is the mother of my 10-year-old son's best friend, who just had to move from Connecticut back to Nebraska. And we were talking to her at Halloween as our boys were off trick-or-treating together. And she said, I hate the idea of starting a new job. I'm good at what I do, which is appointment setting and intake. And I just wish I could not have to keep moving around. Her husband is in the service. And I said, I got a job for you if you want to work on intake at my law firm, and you could work anywhere in the world. And she's like, are you serious? And so she starts today working as a member of our intake team. It'll take a couple of weeks for her to be trained, but when we find good talent, we don't let them go. That's, and I will find a job, and if it means I make less money, I don't think of it as me making less money, because right now I'm good on money. I mean, I don't live an extravagant life, and I'm good on money. What I want is more time. And so by adding the right people, even if I don't have the right spot for them right now, they're buying me time, and I love that.
I think that's very smart. My son Brian and I often have these discussions about, well, how could we further remove ourselves from the day-to-day doing of the legal? Because neither one of us is out fully. I'm out a lot, mostly. And our discussion is exactly that, which is, would you take less now if in 2 years you could have whatever your design of perfect is? And we both go, yeah, of course we would, right? So that's very smart to do.
Hey guys, this is Ben. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, not just the marketing and practice building strategies, but the philosophy of the art of living your best life parts, you should know that my son Brian and I have built a tribe of like-minded lawyers who are living lives of their own design and creating tremendous value for the world within the structure of a law practice. We invite you to join us at the only membership organization for entrepreneurial lawyers that is run by 2 full-time practicing attorneys. Check us out at greatlegalmarketing.com.
Talk to me about the management structure, because you've got 10 lawyers, 33 staff spread out, not just in Connecticut, but Nebraska, I guess, as well.
Similar to a lot of PI firms, we follow a pod model. The one thing that we do differently in our pod model is that we don't have a managing lawyer in charge of the pod. Yeah. We actually the pod paralegal is in charge of the pod. And the reason why I did this
Yeah.
is because my pod paralegals have been with me 15 years plus. And so they have a lot of experience in handling courthouses, and they have relationships with clerks and that type of thing. And unfortunately for me, years ago, we had turnover, inevitable. And we would hire right out of law school, and people would say, 2 years into this, I don't want to do criminal defense. I want to do PI, or I want to do family, or I want to do something else. And so there was turnover at those early positions. We've subsequently done better, I think, of hiring and looking for people who actually want to do criminal defense lawyers. We're now able to pay above market when we have people because we want to retain them. And so we have 5 pods of lawyers and their staff. It's 2 lawyers, a pod leader, and a pod assistant in every pod, and they focus geographically around the state. So we've got north, central, south, post-conviction, which is a pod unto itself. And then we have our intake and reception pod. And I guess marketing is a pod too, although they don't really have pod responsibilities daily. They just work on the tasks that I slack them in the middle of the night and say, hey, this is a great idea. Let's do it.
And so on the legal pods,
Yep.
are they responsible for P&L? And hey, if that pod is doing fine, Jay is not getting involved, and if the pod is maybe falling behind its peers, then there's more active management of the pod.
Yeah, so each pod has a weekly meeting unto itself. The pod leaders also have a weekly meeting. And we have sort of, because we started, unfortunately, I started a long time ago before they had a lot of legal tech, before there was cloud-based stuff. And so we wrote our own management software, our own CRM based on FileMaker, which was an Apple product. Now it's its own standalone thing. So we have our own FileMaker database. So I'm able to extract data. I can see minute to minute how many cases each lawyer is carrying, what phase they're in. And so we try to balance it out to keep it roughly the same across the pods, because I don't want them to be overworked. I want them to have a nice balance in life. That's important to me, because and the flip side to that is when we have situations that people need to step up, sometimes the pods, they don't even involve me. They work it out among themselves to help with coverage and the like.
One of the things that you talked about earlier was that you have a very high level of customer service.
Yes.
Ryan and I say often that from the consumer standpoint, they really are poor judges of who's a good lawyer, who's a bad lawyer, because you don't usually split test your lawyers. But they are looking at and they will remember you because of your customer service. So talk to me a little bit about what that looks like and what sort of, it seems to me if you have this family atmosphere, the customer service part might just come naturally, but you might also have to train on it to keep it.
We definitely have to train. And one of the roles that we're talking about adding next year is this firefighter role, somebody with experience who can jump in when things go awry. And that's because it's the nature of criminal defense practice. You could be going along, humming along fine, and next thing you know, the FBI raids one of your clients and they're freaking out, and you've got to be able to step up and address that. And you're dealing with high emotions and anxiety and that type of thing. Customer service has always been something that it's been important to me. I try to use as much automation as possible for outbound touches. We have somebody who reaches out every month or so just to check in. I have a remote member of my team who's an auditor, whose job it is to make sure that lawyers are, making file notes, sending out client correspondence, making sure that they're updating clients with outbound communication. And when we get those negative knocks on, so I didn't like this part of it, we then all come together in a leadership meeting, me, my partner Teresa, my HR person, and the pod leaders, and we talk about how do we avoid this from happening again in the future. So we're all very much focused on making sure, because what I found is if you take a little initiative and focus on the customer experience, the client experience, and be proactive, right? You're going to save so many phone calls and fires and screaming people. Like, you're just going to avoid those things. And so when you do get that one crazy client, that's another thing too. I mean, inevitably, we have a 2-strike policy that's baked into our CRM. Anybody can give any client a strike at any time. They have to be able to justify it with a file note. But you get 2 strikes, you're done. We'll fire you as a client. And it's amazing how few strikes are given out. But I've empowered my people to know they can do that. And I think that helps them be honest with us about, do we want this person as a client, or can I solve this problem for them?
Well, and that it's a great thing to have your team know that you have their back, and that the firm will absolutely not tolerate people being disrespectful to you. Yes, you have a stressful clientele, right? Facing loss of liberty and fines and all that. But that's a great retention tool to know that when the irritating client, disrespectful client emerges out of the pack, that your team's empowered, number one. And number two, you have given your team like the authority and the autonomy. Yes, I have your back. You can make the judgment to give a strike or to strike somebody out, and IJ will have your back for that.
Oh, absolutely. I'd rather fire a client and give
Are
back
you
all the
doing
money.
any? Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the other part. Like, do never get into a pissing match. Like, no, you're gone. Here's the yellow pages. Here's the whole list of other lawyers in town. Here's all your money back. We're good. The lawyers do stupid things when the clients break up with them. So, are you doing any legal now? If I followed you around for a week or so, what would I see you doing?
So once a month, I do pardon representation before the pardons board, and it's something that I enjoy doing because having been on the other side pleading people out, especially back in the 90s, early 2000s, I pled so many people of color out to really crap drug charges because they couldn't risk perhaps going through a motion to suppress, and the stakes were way too high at the time. And of course, now that stuff is legalized, and it's frustrating to me. So I've really found a passion doing some pardons work. So I'll do that once a month for about 2 hours, first Wednesday of every month, and that's really it for me for legal. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have meetings with my lawyers. They often slack me for advice on cases, given my experience. And if they're prepping a trial, I'll sit down with them and say, okay, what's your theory of the defense, and how are you going about your cross-examination? I've been lucky in my entire career to have some really good friends who are just phenomenal trial lawyers across the country. I mean, just like Deandra Grant out of Texas, Justin McShane out of Pennsylvania, Josh Lee out of Oklahoma. I mean, they're so good that if I get stumped, I can turn to them and get them answers, get their answers to my people, or make the connection. And I am in awe of their skills. So really what I want to do is I just want to act as a conduit to getting my people the best education, whether it's me or somebody else, so that we can provide top level service.
That's another thing we've noticed with lawyers that we hire as laterals out of sort of traditional. We hunt through the insurance defense firms. It's shocking how little autonomy they have, but how little these firms are investing in these younger lawyers' education. I mean, because we're like, hey, if you find a conference you want to go to and tell us about it, like, we want you to go. We want you to become a better trial lawyer. And so many firms are like, here's your $250 credit to go for your whole CLE schedule for the year. Go have fun with that. Talk to me a little bit about.
We do that across the board too. I mean, like a month from now, I've got the Ritz-Carlton people are coming in to do a training for my entire office on customer service. It was 10 grand, but it was worth it to bring them in and do a training for so we'll shut down for the afternoon and everyone will participate. And, those are the types of things that we can invest in to make everybody better.
What you spoke earlier about tremendous growth over the last year or so. What is 2024 looking like? Do you have any new initiatives, or you continue to do the same but do it better, do it more? What's coming up?
So we're in the process of sketching out a retheme of our website, and that's a big project because it's got 2,000 or so pages of content on it. And we have another website that we want to put up. I've got 3 regional offices that I think we're going to launch in the year. And I've got a book that I've been working on. I've got a bunch of books that are out there. Tiger Tactics 2 just came out, and so I've got that. But one of the things that we actually had as an in-house resource was a trial handbook that I would use, which had, here's all the objections, and here's the answers to all the objections. Here's what you can ask and can't ask in jury selection. So, and these were all materials that I had accumulated over the years that I had in my own personal trial notebook. Well, I hired a law student a year ago, and I said, let's turn this into a real book. It's up to like 300 pages now, but it's not long on prose. Here's the foundational questions you need to have if you're stumped on how to offer a social media exhibit. Ask these 5 questions, boom, it's in. And so we're going to try to get that book out, and then I'm going to use that as part of my plan for developing more referrals in 2024 from the legal community as one of my missions, because I really want to focus. I'm happy with the digital stuff, but I think there's more opportunity as the boomer population retires to become known in the greater legal community, not of criminal defense, but I'm going to go to family lawyers, personal injury lawyers, trust and estate lawyers, and educate them so that I can be the one that they refer to, as people tend to niche down now more and more.
At our conference this year, a few months ago, we talked a lot about the human capital marketing, because the digital space is both unpredictable and very, very crowded. And I think lawyers oftentimes take the shortcut of whipping out the credit card and paying someone to do something digitally versus doing really the human capital work of getting in front of lawyers in other practice areas, sharing with them some of the things you know about business building growth. We have a mastermind member of ours, and his niche is representing whistleblowers in the Medicare fraud space, right? In his whole marketing, he does CLEs for big law associates and comes in, they have lunch for an hour, he does a presentation. A lot of those cases they may see, but they're conflicted out of. So he helps them. I think that's a great plan for 24. Talk to us a little bit, because I know that you're big on mentoring the next generation. You've got a mastermind group, the Criminal Mastermind. And I think what's lacking in the profession, one of the things that's lacking in the profession is good mentorships, like lawyers who are willing to say, hey, if you got a practice, like, you can come hang with me. You can have access to me. I like to do it with people who will go and do things, who will actually like move the ball forward. I don't like to do it just as a formality at all. What are you doing in that space?
So for me, I can remember being a young law firm owner, young DUI attorney, and I would work all day running around, handling cases, hearings at the courthouse. And then I'd come home. I was a single guy. I came home to my dog. And I would then use the second part of the day would be how to figure out this business thing. So I was reading things like Entrepreneur and Smart Business Magazine when it existed, Inc. I would buy every book that was out there in the business section, because there wasn't a legal business section of Barnes and Noble or Borders. There was just a business section. So I would go, I'd buy a book and I'd devour it, saying there's got to be business principles I can apply to my business to make it better, make it run smoother, take the burden off of me. And I was really lonely, like ridiculously lonely, worrying about if the phone is going to ring, worrying about how am I going to make this thing actually survive so that I can actually pay my student loans off. And so what I decided to do was just focus on building this mastermind. And I've been part of other groups on Facebook of like-minded lawyers that are focusing on the entrepreneurial lawyer and that type of thing. But criminal defense lawyers are kind of, we're a weird group of people. So much what we do is not about the money. It's like a sort of, I just want to fight the man type of mentality. And it's funny, I even talked to some people in the PI space, and they're like, what do you mean you don't get out of cases if you don't get paid? I'm like, nah, I say, okay, well, screw you. I'm going to try the case anyway. And I do it for nothing. And I lose money because I'm not going to go down without a fight type of thing. And so because we're so weird, because we don't have any business training, and so many lawyers in this criminal space would really go out of business if left to their own devices, I wanted to create a safe space for them to get together. We bring in speakers. We talk about best practices. We share ideas. And it's really been great for me because I get to talk to people who are beginning their journey and help them avoid some of the colossal mistakes I have made, just like monumental $100,000 mistake when I didn't have $100,000 to spare. I mean, I don't know anybody who has $100,000 to spare, but like that's the thing. Like, if I can help one person avoid that problem, I'm happy to do it because I want to be like Johnny Appleseed. The more I give away, the better I do. And I mean, my biggest referral came in by way of me chatting up the guy next to me at a hockey game and offering to buy him a beer to thank him for his service. And he wound up bringing in a PI case that I referred out that's going to pay for my, it's just, at the end, the more you give away, the better you wind up being.
We are philosophically aligned on that. Like, just put value into the world without expectation of return. You will actually get return. But it's actually so much more fun just to find, I believe, right, just to find ways to not impress yourself upon someone else, but to say, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or do you need a connection? Because I can introduce you to somebody. Or here's a book or a podcast or something, or in the old days, a CD to go listen to. Jay, if someone who's listening to this, perhaps a young lawyer, wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way? Give us your website. Where do you want people
Sure.
to? I know you're big on LinkedIn as well.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Just look up Attorney Jay Ruane. You can get me at thecriminalmastermind.com or ruaneattorneys.com. You can. I'm out there. I'm not hard to find. If you know how to spell my name, Jayruane, you'll find me. Although there is a guy, unfortunately for him, there's a contractor in Florida that has the exact same name as me. And I feel so badly for him that if he, searches up his name, it's all me. So if anybody's in Florida and they're looking to give a guy a break, it's called Papa Bear Construction. There's another Jay Ruane out there. It's not me, but I can't vouch for how good he is, but he's looking for business online too. So if you're in Central Florida, look for him. Just know you're not getting me, because I should not be swinging a hammer. That's for sure.
Right, that's right. That's not your gift and talent to share with the world. Neither is it mine, which is why we're doing what we do here. Jay,
Exactly.
Thanks so much for spending the time with us this afternoon. I hope you have a fabulous end of the year. It sounds like we've got a really great program going where people like your team, like they like coming to work. It sounds like they like working with the people that they work with and working for the people that you work with. And for those who are listening to this, when you can put all that together, and it's absolutely possible to put it all together, it really makes this practice of law thing just a part of life, like a positive part of life where we can serve, we can make money, but we're just building lives around us. My son and I say we built a place where people will thrive. It sounds like you have certainly done that up in Connecticut.
Yeah, that's what it's all about for us. We want to give people the life they want from the practice that they love, and so that's what we're all about here.
Well, keep doing it, my man. It's been great to catch up with you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
If you like what you just heard on the Renegade Lawyer Podcast, you may be a perfect fit for the great legal marketing community. Law firm owners across the country are becoming heroes to their families and icons in their communities. They've gone renegade by rejecting the status quo of the legal profession so they can deliver high-quality legal services coupled with top-notch customer service to clients who pay, stay, and refer. Learn more at greatlegalmarketing.com. That's greatlegalmarketing.com.